Hello, I'm BeMyOathsworn and welcome to my channel and my second official video. In this video I'm going to be talking how and why I play Kalista, and hopefully by the end of the video I can convince you maybe to give her a try and probably even become one of the 6 Kalista mains out there. Or disagree with me completely and think she's absolute trash just by like everybody else in this game. First, why am I Kalista main? Believe it or not, it's for quite a stupid reason, and this story takes place back when the Hextech system was first introduced. I was in the depths of bronze, as I remember right, and I opened up my first Hextech chest, and what I got within was Championship Kalista. Shit. I never owned her, and to be honest, I completely forgot she even existed. I asked my friend the same day what it was like to play Kalista and was she worth buying or playing. My friend responded that she was basically the hardest ADC he had ever played, and right had nerfed her into the ground, and that she was basically unplayable. Given that very detailed description on why she is bad, me being me, thought it was exactly what I should do is to buy this champion and play it. I thought it might be the champion that could get me to climb the ELO ladder, and I don't know why I thought this, given at the time she was the lowest win rate ADC in gold and below. But oh well, you know. Okay, now that we've got that very boring, very descriptive intro out of the way, I'm going to get on with the stupid video. A lot of you have probably already closed the video by now, but oh well, kind of got to carry on anyway. Okay, now we're going to start with the Keybindings, what I consider probably one of the most important things to me personally playing Kalista. First thing you're going to think when you see these Keybindings is, what the actual fuck, and how the hell do you play the champion like that? And to be honest, that's half of what my friends responds with. But then again, I also have a friend that does play League of Legends with the camera movement on WASD. Yeah, think about that, what a fucking mindfuck. Still don't know how he does it today. But you know, back to Keybindings. I have my R set to player attack move click. This is for one of two reasons. Is one, did you know your index finger is actually the fastest reacting finger on your hand? That's actually a fact, by the way. And two, isn't it such a waste to have that kind of reaction speed to go to waste, because the average champ only really ults every 90 seconds, unless your life looks. My actual ult key is on T, and if I'm ulting, I really highly doubt I'm going to be auto attacking, to be honest. If I'm in a situation where I'm ulting, I'm not going to be auto attacking. Player attack move click is actually what happens is when you press this button, or if it's binding to your mouse, which some people actually do, when you click in a certain position, your champion will auto attack the closest target to your cursor while doing it at your maximum attack range. Now this is like a very useful tool for CSing in lane, to attacking champions in team fights, and the reason it's so good is because if you use a normal click in a team fight to go, let's say, auto attack their backline as Caitlyn, and you misclick and instead overstep and walk straight into their tank, this is going to be a very bad situation for you, and trust me, it's worth practicing using this tool for AD carries. I mean, it sometimes works for melee champions, and you can try it for mages if you wanted to harass it in lane and be safe, but in general it's like probably one of the most useful tools I've ever used in this game. Another thing about it is that you can also use it to kite jungle camps, and it will only start working once you firstly auto attack the target intentionally. So let's say you do your A click, which I'm just going to call it auto attack click. It's A click. Let's say you just auto attack on the ground somewhere in the jungle, but there's a monster within your auto attack range. Don't worry, you're not going to randomly start auto attacking this monster. You're only going to start auto attacking with the A click once you've done your first initial auto attack. Now this is actually very useful for when you're fighting in the jungle, so you don't have to worry about auto attacking monsters in team fights, and all your damage will be put onto champions if you just so happen to have your cursor slightly closer to that Gromp than the AD carry. But you know, these situations can happen. Okay, now why is this important on Kalista? Kalista has some very weird interaction with this. I don't know if it's called an ability. Let's just say, yeah, let's just call it an ability. Let's just say Kalista has a very weird action with this ability, where Any other AD carry will just walk and auto attack. Now, Kalista does both. She will jump into the direction of the cursor while also winding up her auto attack if there is something in range with her in range of her already. What will happen is if you're not in range, Kalista will just normally walk into auto attack range, then insta lock onto a target, then jump to towards the cursor's location. This is very useful for when you're in team fights and you get chased down by their tanks or divers or whatever, and when you're having to kite at really stupid speeds, clicking back and forth is sometimes not optimal because you can misclick and really fuck yourself over. Now, using R-click will automatically target the champion that's nearest to you. Obviously, because your cursor's pointing backwards, it can only auto-attack whatever's in front, unless there is something behind you. And it's quite a useful tool, and it saved me quite a lot of times, and I recommend it for people actually trying it on her. You'll probably have a lot of success rate in team fights with her now, after trying it. Okay, let's go to runes. First, I have 3 different rune pages. Now, they're quite weird rune pages, so I'm not expecting you to buy all the runes that are on these pages, but this is personally what I use. So we have page 1, which is flat AD reds, flat armor yellows, attack speed blues, and attack speed quintessences. This page is for supports that are like protective supports or tanks. So supports like Janna, which don't have really that much magic damage, so trading the extra 12 MR for extra attack speed is actually quite valuable on Kalista, considering there's no point having a resistance if it's not really going to be utilised very well in the laning phase. Now, we've got my second page, which is kind of like the first one, but the other way around. So we take AD reds, we take attack speed yellows, MR blues, and attack speed quintessences. This, basically the same idea. So if you're against a very farm heavy AD carry, so we're talking like the Vaynes, the Jinxes, the ones that really don't do anything in the laning phase, I would rather trade the armor and have the extra damage to kill them while they're weak, because when it comes to late game, you're not going to touch them regardless, so that 9 armor isn't going to really make the difference. So when you're against those kind of lanes, you really need to snowball and end the game early, and this is what that page is for. Now my final page is flat AD reds, flat armor yellows, MR blues, and attack speed quintessences. This page is my oh shit I just got a counter picked page in Champ Select. Now this can sometimes happen and you can end up having to pick first, your support's picked, and then you find out you're going against a Draven with a let's say Leona. Leona's a really horrible one to play against with Kalista. Now, I can't risk not having the MR and magic resist just because of how much damage and kill pressure they have on me. So for that page, it's literally my just survive lane and hope you can win game page. So that's all the 3 mastery pages I take, and then just the extra one, which I never ever take in ranked. It is my balls to the wall mastery page, which is just AD reds, attack speed yellows, attack speed blues, and attack speed quintessences. And oh my god, it was just so good being able to attack so fast in the early game. It's probably one of the funniest things to try on Kalista, but like I said, I'd never be brave enough to try it in ranked. Okay, now let's talk Masteries. For the Mastery set you really want to take, well, the set I personally take, considering that's what the video is about, I start with in the Veracity tree, and first I take Fury. Now, I don't think this really needs explaining, so if that needs explaining, I'm pretty sure there's another video out there as why you take Fury on an AD carry. For the second, I take Feast. Feast is very useful on Kalista, considering you're constantly always rend resetting, meaning you can gain easy health back just by using your kit, basically. Feast, you should always basically be using this. It's up every 30 seconds, which is the time it takes in time in between each wave spawns. So, I mean, if you're not making complete use of its cooldown, then I don't know. Just no. Vampirism. Yeah, Kalista really synergizes well for lifesteal, and you don't really start with any, other than unless you would start Doran's Blade, but we'll be talking about that later. Bounty Hunter. No, Kalista is a very snowball champion, and I have full faith that you will be able to kill everyone on their team. If you're not very confident in yourself, it is also a good idea to start take Battle Trance, where the 3% extra damage over 3 seconds is quite useful for your end in the early game. But personally, I take Bounty Hunter because I always have faith that I'm going to kill everybody on the enemy team. Now, Battering Blows. Obviously, Kalista only does physical damage with the exception of her W passive, which can't even be procced by yourself. So, Battering Blows is the only way to go. Now, Fervor of Battle is my personal only choice that should ever be taken on Kalista. Do not take Warlords, do not take Deathfire Touch, do not take Thunderlords, just Fervor. And the reason is because when you're stacking this on enemy champions, you're not only your auto attacks are starting to do more damage, but your rend is going to do so much more damage when you come to proccing all probably about, I don't know, probably about 7 or 8 stacks by now if you've fully stacked Fervor. So yeah, that's definitely the reason you should be taking Fervor, is just to maximise your rend's damage potential. Now, people are going to be like, why are you not going in the cunning tree? But personally, for Kalista, there is literally in the culling tree, there is one mastery, which is Merciless, which is really useful for her, but it's not worth wasting, 11 points just to get that one good point. Personally, I take into the Resolve tree. Now, with Resolve, I take Recovery, and Tough Skin, and Veteran Scars. I take all of these is because I'm a very, very aggressive laner when playing Kalista. I'm always looking for a fight, I'm always looking to poke down. Now, in the Cunning Tree, they offer no defense for me, they offer no protection if I happen to just get all-in and I don't expect it. Now, with the extra health regen and the damage reduction and the extra health, I can be quite aggressive with all these stats behind me. And then I also take it to my last point, which is I usually put it in Insight, mostly because I play really aggressively, and having my summoners up more often than my enemy makes it quite a useful tool. But if you're not going to take Insight, and if you're against quite a poke heavy lane, Fearless is also a good option because it's up every 9 seconds and it increases your bonus attack damage and magic resist every time you take damage for 2 seconds. Now, that would be quite annoying when I'm playing Caitlyn, and if all of a sudden they just keep getting big bursts of resistances every time I'm just trying to poke them down in the lane. So this is another reason why it's a good mastery. Now, the one in the middle, Perseverance, is not too great. I mean, the extra health regen is not going to last in a team fight, to be honest, because if you're getting bursted, and you're Kalista, so you're not going to survive regardless, unless you build my special item, which I'll be talking about later in the video. Okay, let's talk about laning phase. Now, how to be dominant in the laning phase is that you need to play really, really aggressively. You need to keep up with your 0 cooldown poke spam, and this way you should be able to, when auto attacking a minion for CS, you should be able to keep a spear in there and do not rend. You need to wait 4 seconds, and you have up until that time before the minion dies to look for an opportunity to poke. You have 4 ways to do this. The first option is that you auto your minion, and then you auto your target as much as possible before and then rending to execute at the minion, and not only reset the rend but recover the mana cost and do a literal ton of damage as free poke to your laner. Now, this isn't always the option considering you're not always in auto attack range, so here's the second way. The second way is to first auto your minion. You want to see if your target is out of range first, but not behind cover. You can then throw out a Q towards them and insta-rend as soon as the Q hits. It is a really, really good way to do long range poke to one where they really can't poke back, unless you're like Kaylin. The third option is a very situational one, and it requires a range support which is actively poking. When your support autos a target, you should have a half spear above their head that can proc within the next 1.5 seconds. If you proc this, you will do bonus percentage health damage to the target, and it can also be used on minion for your support to last hit for you if this situation ever occurs. not only can this be used on minions, but it can also be used on champions. In a fight, if you just so happen to be fighting, and just before your support gets the killing blow, you poke with an auto or a Q. If they do then deal the killing blow, if you're passive procced on the killing blow, the kill is granted to you, so is the gold, and the kill recognition, the kill feed. Even though the support was the last one that auto-attacked, the passive makes it so Kalista will always get the reward for it. I know it's a bit of a privilege thing, but it's hard being an AD carry, I guess. Now once you know how to pull this off, you know, use it in the laning phase, use it in fights. Now, it does have a 10-second cooldown per target, just going to mention that now. But the proc can also be, the mark can also be procced by your Q, which is quite useful actually, considering you're not always within attack range if your support's in attack range. Considering, I don't know, they might be poking in the distance, you might be farming at the back. Things happen in solo queue, trust me. It's stupid things. Now, with your fourth option, this is the hardest to pull off, and I will respect any Kalista player that can do it. You need to first stack spears, as many spears into a minion as possible without killing it, but you need to know that your Q can kill it. Now, this requires a lot of experience, to be honest. You need to kind of know how much damage your Q deals at the rank you have it at. Now, what you want to do is you want to line yourself up between the minion and the opponent you want to strike. You want to Q straight through this minion, and then execute the minion with the Q, carrying all spears through to the next target. Hopefully it will be a champion and not just another minion. Trust me, it's a heartache when that happens. But once you carry through all spears to the next champion, you can rend instantly from massive poke, regardless of its cooldown, unless you prepped a minion right next to you beforehand to insta rend reset. But trust me, it'll be worth the damage. I mean, it'll be worth the cooldown, and the damage will be worth it. It's only a 30 mana cost, and your rend's cooldown, which is 14 seconds at rank 1, which I don't really think you're going to be doing this at rank 1 anyway, considering you won't have a Q. Now, within this time, your rend is on cooldown. You want to look for other things you can do, things like warding your lane, shoving your wave, ready to back, stuff like that. Your W can also be used to ward Drake, which I'll be showing at the end of the video in my tips and tricks, which is a very powerful tool, by the way, and it should be used way more than I see it does. Like, I see Kalista players all the time in ranked, in gold elo, by the way, and are not using their centaurs at all. It is free wards, literal free wards. You have no excuse not to use them, and I'll show you how to abuse how strong they actually are, like guiding them through the jungle and stuff like that. Okay, that's all for the laning phase. Okay, now it's probably going to be the hardest one to explain, which is team fights. Kalista kind of plays similar to a Vayne, in the manner of your playstyle is to kite around people on the outside of fights, trying not to get hit by any kind of crowd control, slows, stuns, knockups. You really can't be hit by anything. Slows probably hurt Kalista more than any other champion, and this is one reason why. Your martial poise, which is your passive, your movement speed is obviously, you know, your jump is based off your movement speed. And if your movement speed is slowed, your attack speed is also slowed, meaning you're doing a lot of reduced damage just because of some CC. Now, obviously if you're stunned you're going to do 0 damage, but that's regardless. If any other champion gets slowed, it's completely different. They can still do the same kind of damage. Now, this is also a really good way to counter Kalista as well. If you're just so happen to be fighting against a Kalista in the future, just remember to buy items with slowing effects. This includes Frozen Mallet, Randuin's Omen. All these kind of items that slow are really, really good against Kalista, and you'll probably instantly wreck her if you run at her with slows. Now, that's one thing. We'll get to the next thing, which is you're not a Lucian. You can't dash into a fight and insta-burst their mid laner. You have to be patient, you have to stack as many spears into your enemies as you can, and then rend as your finisher if they try to make a move on you. Your rend can also be used for a slow in a team fight if they just so happen to be running at you, like their backline divers or anything. I don't always do it, but it's a good option because it is a 45% slow, which is quite strong and could save your life. You might not have the kill potential anymore, but you not dying is just as important. Okay, now let's get to the next thing. When you find yourself in a situation where you've been dove by the backline, and maybe let's say there's one or two, let's say you've got dove by a freaking Diana and let's say a Mundo. Even the Sun, I don't know how Mundo would get to the backline, but you know, let's just say you go dove by a Mundo and a... Actually no, let's say Mundo Caitlyn, because this actually happened to me. What happened was, I was at the back of the team fight, and both Mundo Caitlyn ran it at me. My team weren't close enough to save me, and this was my own fault, by the way. I was obviously out of position. Now, in this situation, the only option you have is to kite backwards for as long as you can, and hope that you can stack enough spears to kill either one of them, and then turn it into a 1v1. Now, one of two things can happen. You can either kill them both, or one of them, if it was only one person that dove you. You'll either kill them both, or one of them, or you'll die, but they chased you so far out of the team fight, your team are now either in a 4v4 or a 3v4, which is an advantage for your team, meaning you could have just won the fight by bringing people out of it. Now, this is solo queue, so this isn't going to always happen. I'm just putting it into a positive situation. Now, the last thing I would recommend for team fights is, you probably know you need your support close to you to use your ultimate. That's a very important thing. In solo queue, you will get the supports that just want to be an annoying asshole and not help you. Every time they ult, well, they'll just bait you and they'll just go backwards. They'll just bait you with your ult. And sometimes it's just, don't use your ult to engage. Just wait for your support to get caught, and use your ult to save them. It's probably more useful that way. Even though you probably don't like them, it's better than to have an annoying cunt on your team than a 4v5. Now, sometimes this has actually happened. Saving them with your ult can be a kind enough gesture for them to actually start listening to you again, and it shows that you're respecting them, even though you personally just don't want to do a 4v5. But that's another big thing I'll recommend for team fights. I'm obviously not a pro, but this is just personal experience. Okay, lastly, last subject, video's almost ended. We'll talk about items, starting with the starting items. Okay, so we'll talk about the three options you have. You have Cull, Doran's Blade, and Longsword in 3 pots, and what you should take in each situation. Cull, I'd recommend as my most frequent starting item on Kalista, considering you get so much more farm than any other AD carry, considering you have no excuse to miss a minion if you know how to rend reset properly. It's also really good for the mid game. Once you get it fully stacked, you sell it, that's an extra 650 gold you've got towards Kalista's already cheap items. Now, I wouldn't recommend starting it against a kill lane. Just don't do it. I've done it, just don't do it. It goes very badly, unless they're like stupid. But let's talk Doran's Blade now. Doran's Blade is against your kill lanes. Doran's Blade is the one I take when I need to kind of fight back and I need the extra AD in health and lifesteal. It's pretty much just a standard for most ADs, but I take it probably 40% of the time when I'm against people. Actually, not even that, probably even 20 to 30%. But it's not a very frequent item for me. And then the last item, which is Longsword. Longsword is a very situational item for me, where I take it just when I really feel like it, I guess. It's a bad excuse, but I literally just take it when I feel like it. I take Longsword when I'm planning to rush a Vamp Scepter, so if it's a poke heavy lane, I take Longsword, 3 pots, can't poke me out of lane, rush my Vamp Scepter, I'm done for the laning phase. They literally can't poke me down. That's the only reason I would personally take Longsword. Now, let's get to early items and why I take these items. So first we've got Executioner's Culling, and if I do not see this item more often, I'm going to frickin' scream because it's so ridiculous now. When you're against a Soraka lane, when you're against anything that has a high heal potential, take Executioner's Culling. The gold value is so worth it because you literally auto win lane from it. What is a healer going to do if they can't heal? They're basically a useless champion. Like, I've done it so many times into Soraka and I basically never lose lane from it. Okay, then we've got BF Sword. BF Sword is sometimes my first back item if I just got a double kill in lane and I'm looking to snowball. If not, I take it right about when I'm gonna get my Bloodthirster. Then with my next item is Vam Scepter. Vam Scepter I take mostly if I build Longsword first, but at the same time, if I end up getting camped, poked out in lane, these are unexpected things that can happen. So some champions, you don't expect them to poke you out in lane, when in fact they're not really giving a shit about CS, they're just giving a shit about you. Now, last item, and I will accept this is the only form of boots you should build, and it's Berserker Greaves. I don't care what anyone else says. If I see you build frickin' Mobies, which is, I've frickin' seen it, I've seen Mobies in my game, I'll literally just insta-quit. Now, we've got to full items, and I'm going to talk about this in a very mathematical manner. So, my first two items are normally Bloodthirster, Rune's Hurricane. In that order. I build the BF Sword, the Vam Scepter, then the Rune's Hurricane, then finish off the Bloodthirster. The reason I do this is because the extra AD and lifesteal is not only cheaper, but does more damage than a Blade and the Rune King. The percentage health damage, I've done the math, and I'll probably bring it up on screen now, but it's really not worth spending 3,400 gold when you could do the same damage and have the same sustain for literally, let me just do the math in my head now, 2,200 it should be, unless I'm a boosted ape, but that should be the cost. Then you've got your Rune's Hurricane. If I see you build this as a first item with no AD attached to your kit, to your item list, just stop playing now. There's no point. Everyone's like, oh, but it helps with rend resets, and I'm like, what's the point when you do no damage? I would rather do a lot of damage to one person than no damage to 3 people. Now, here we get onto the Blade of the Rune King, which is sometimes sometimes a third item or a fourth item. Now, it's good when you get into the late game when everyone starts to get a higher HP pool. It's not good in the early game when everyone has probably most of 800 health. So when you get into the late game and you see the enemy team's got a lot of tanks, you know Blade of the Rune King's got it for you. Third item, usually recommend if you verse tanks. Fourth item, if you're not verse that many tanks. Now we got Mercurial Scimitar. I sometimes build just the QSS component if it's gonna be a hard mid game for me, and then finish it off later in the game. But it's pretty much usually a 5th or 6th item for me. There's no reason to rush it unless it's a really hard lane. I mean, we're talking like Ashley owner lane is the only reason I would probably rush it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for Mercurial Scimitar. Okay, let's move on to Wit's End. Wit's End is a very, very situational item, to which you need to be against at least 3 or 4 AP damages for this to be a viable buy. But at the same time, it's a really good buy because think of the passive right. It steals magic resist. You've got Rune's Hurricane. This is going to be applied to 3 targets at once. Obviously, it doesn't stack with the magic resist you get back, but you're still reducing everyone's magic resist around you with your Runons. If you've got an AP mage on your team, you are literally giving them like a full hard on right now. Like when they see that their freaking AD carry has got probably less than freaking 10 MR, this Syndra's just going to literally run up to him, press R, and he's gone. That's it. But the reason you would personally buy it is the magic resist and attack speed and on hit damage all synergizes well with Kalista. And it only costs 2,500 gold. It literally costs less than your starting items. So it's a really, really good item to get. Okay, let's talk about Mortal Reminder. Okay, Mortal Reminder is the item you built if you got Executioner's Culling in the early game. Because there's no point in selling that Executioner's Culling because it's just a waste of gold. And there's obviously still a healer on the team. But Mortal Reminder is also good into champs that have high healing in their kit. So you've got Vladimir, you've got Mundo. These champions are probably going to stomp on you unless you reduce their healing some way, which Mortal Reminder has your back for that. Now, that's pretty much the only reason I would buy it, because obviously of its effect, and you may need the armor pen, because if you're buying Mortal Reminder in the first place, you've obviously bought Last Whisper for a reason, and that's to, you know, get through that armor of, you know, the freaking Thornmail Garen that's probably running at you. Now you've got Lord Dominik's. Lord Dominik's is the option that I take if they don't have a healer on the team, but they've still got some pretty meaty tanks I need to get through. So, Lord Dominik's, its effect, I'm pretty sure in this patch is 1.5% extra damage to every 100 health, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. It's very useful to getting through, like, big tanks. Kalista doesn't have crits, so, you know, she doesn't do massive damage, she just does really good sustained damage, and obviously the execution too. No Infinity Edge. Okay, I've done this a few times, it's kind of troll, don't do it in ranked, but Infinity Edge Phantom Dancer, Rune's Hurricane, is quite a decent build, but it really breaks Kalista's kit, considering the idea is you're supposed to get as many spears as you can, but you're not going to get as many spears as you can when you're killing them all through your crits. So, I mean, try it in a normal game, it's quite fun, I've tried it. Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, Essence Reaver, some kind of lifesteal item, get a Lord Dominik's, you'll literally shred anything. But you'll notice once you get your IE, you won't be using your Ren too much, other than for probably slows. Okay, let's talk about Frozen Mallet, which is my secret OP item. I take Frozen Mallet as a defensive choice for Kalista because I would rather have Frozen Mallet over, what's it called again? Guardian Angel, that's it. I would rather have it over Guardian Angel for one of two, well, for quite a few reasons actually. Number one, Guardian Angel, once you've procced its passive, you're probably going to be in the middle of a team fight where the enemy team are going to wait to sit on your ass and completely kill you with that less 700 HP you have. So, it's completely not optimal, to be honest. It may save you in some situations, but I would just rather have the HP pool anyway. Now, I go with Frozen Mallet for these reasons. You've got the 700 HP, which, trust me, can really be worthwhile in a team fight when you're being poked at by, like, just anything in general. Then you've got the AD component, which is 35 attack damage, which for a tank item, I mean, it's free AD basically, so I'm nothing to complain about. Now, the next reason, which is the best reason ever why to take this on Kalista, and it's passive, which slows for 30% every auto attack. This passive alone makes your passive strong as fuck, like literally just makes it so strong. You're literally uncatchable, whereas you're not only kiting backwards at stupid speeds, but they're also slowed indefinitely until they pretty much die. And pretty much why it's my favourite item in the game. Seriously, give it a try. It'll be worth your while and worth your gold. Now, I was going to do a tips and tricks in the end of the video, but I didn't expect this video to last almost 35 minutes. So I'm going to make a complete separate video on everywhere you can jump on Kalista, which walls, how to use your Sentinel correctly. I'm going to do that all in a complete separate video. So I'm literally just going to roll the outro now, so see you in that next video if I ever decide to make it.
Return our spear.